Today on Growing Idaho, I've heard from a lot of you on the housing crisis, and many of you say we have too many short-term rentals owned by large out-of-state corporations, and that's a big reason for the crisis because it's taking homes off the market. That's the perception. Is it rooted in reality? Kind of. Let's take a look, and let's start overseas, actually, where locals in Barcelona, Spain are doing this, spraying tourists with water guns, and they're protesting. Residents say mass tourism is overwhelming the city and spiking the cost of living, especially housing.
Stress the declining quality of life for local residents, and that would include the increasing cost of housing, the noise, the litter, the displacement of long-term residents, and the relentless construction.
An increase in the cost of housing, displacement of long-term residents, relentless construction, you say? If that sounds familiar to you, you've looked at the social media comment section on my Growing Idaho stories. Is the same thing happening here? Are too many homes being bought by corporations and then used as short-term rentals instead of being made available for actual residents to buy? Well, I asked the city of Boise. Here are their numbers. First, let's take a look at what exactly these rentals are. Now, the majority, 60%, are single-family homes, with only 15% being condos, 10% apartments, 5% just rooms, and 10% something in between all that. So not all these short-term rentals could even be sold as single homes to potential buyers, but most of them could. So that somewhat confirms the perception that these rentals are taking homes off the market. Now here's a look, importantly, at who owns these. There are 637 active and licensed short-term rentals in Boise. 50 new applications are being processed. So of that total, 290 are owned by corporations, 347 are owned by individuals. So that means almost half of these short-term rentals are owned by corporations, not locals renting out an investment property. So there is some truth to the perception that corporate home ownership is hurting the housing market. But of all these rentals from corporations or individuals, only 15% are out of state. So whether it's a big business or regular folks, the vast majority are local. So that almost completely destroys the perception that out-of-state owners are hampering the local housing market. It's also important to note that there are more than 400 unlicensed short-term rentals. We don't have the demographics on those, but it means that the total number of short-term rentals in Boise city limits is 1,100 to 1,200, maybe a little more, which is right around the number of actual homes for sale. So let's review. The perception is that these short-term rentals are owned by large corporations. Not all, in fact. It's a little more than 42% that are. The owners are from out of state. Actually, only 15% are. They're using all the single-family homes. Not all, but a 60% majority of these rentals are single-family homes, and they're taking homes off the market. There are around 1,200 short-term rentals in Boise, which is about the number of homes for sale as well, except they're not for sale, they're being rented. Again, these numbers only apply in the Boise city limits, and the demographics are for the licensed short-term rentals. By the way, in case you did not know, and apparently hundreds of you do not, a license is necessary for operating short-term rentals in Boise, and the city can help you get one of those if you do not have one. Coming up on Wake